Shalom and welcome to Israel. And I want to emphasize for the purpose of this video that it is being recorded in the land of Israel. Now, why is that important? Because a few days ago, Israel was attacked by Iran with approximately 190 ballistic missiles that came out of Iran and entered into Israel. And what I'd like to do at this time is to speak about that evening and some other things related to what's going on in Israel. And why I speak to this, I want to share with you a video that was taken from our apartment facing east, where you can see what we saw on that Tuesday night. Ballistic missiles that were launched out of Iran and came towards our city. In fact, while this video was being recorded, we had numerous sirens to alert us that the city that we live in was a target for these ballistic missiles. Now, about every major city in Israel was a target. But this is what I want to share with you. Despite what you hear from some media outlets and online through podcasts and such, see, many people are saying that this attack was different than on April 13th, when again, there was approximately 180 ballistic missiles along with attack drones and other types of missiles that were launched to Israel. And what I want you to realize is what they are saying is false. Now, there's one individual, his name is Scott Ritter. He claims to be a former UN weapons inspector. He may very well be, but he is very misinformed and is a very anti-Semitic individual. What he shares is fraudulent. It is false. And why do I say that? Because he says, Iran was very nice in April. They sent some of their older things, but this time, well, it was different. They sent some of their best ballistic missiles. Now, I don't know where he's getting his information, but let me share with you this. On April 13th, that attack was ineffective. Likewise, what we saw this past Tuesday night was very ineffective. What was the outcome of what took place this past Tuesday night? Well, unfortunately, there were 2 Israelis that were lightly injured. And also, there was one Palestinian man from the city of Jericho, and a piece of one of these ballistic missiles that our air defense system knocked out of the sky, a portion of that missile unfortunately fell upon him and killed him instantly.
Wow.
It's very sad.
Wow.
It is a tragedy when any loss of life occurs in the land of Israel. So we are concerned, just like we were for a very young Bedouin girl that was injured on April 13th through shrapnel from that same Israeli air defense system. Unfortunately, she was injured and spent about 4 months in the hospital, but finally was released, and from what we are told, is doing much better, and we give God thanks for that. But what I want to share with you is this. What took place this past Tuesday night did not in any way damage Israel significantly. It was highly ineffective, and the damage was very, very minimal. So all of these critics of Israel saying how successful it was and how it was so different than April 13th, let me just simply say with all sincerity and in honesty, they are providing false information. That is kind of a kind way of saying that they are lying, or at best, they are highly misinformed. What I want to share with you as we move into the second part of this video is something that is extremely troubling to me personally, and I think to most Israelis and most people who want to see terrorists killed. And what is that? Constantly, we hear, in fact, going back almost to the beginning of this conflict, which began on October 7th, we've heard three groups, and let's be very specific: the United Nations, the European Union, and the White House. They all call for a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire, and I can say something else. God does not want a ceasefire. Now, how do I know that? I'm certainly not a spokesman for God, but God wants justice. With God, there is always accountability, and therefore, Israel needs to be concentrating on doing several things. Number one, killing the terrorists. That is going to bring a deterrence to other terrorists attacking Israel. Also, there is an issue of justice. When people rise up against a group, and I'm speaking about against Israel, killing, and we've seen numerous soldiers put to death. We've seen numerous civilians both taken hostages and killed, and civilians within Israel being killed, like those 12 precious Druze children who were killed by Hezbollah. So I don't understand why the United Nations, the European Union, and the White House wants a ceasefire. We should want victory. We should be striving for an unconditional surrender. And I think it is tragic and wrong when people say, well, you can't destroy Hamas. Oh, yes, you can. And what we see is that Hamas is practically destroyed. And I personally believe when its leader, Sinwar, who is the leader now after the main leaders were put to death, just like we see Hezbollah in the north, I'm speaking about from Lebanon, attacking Israel every day. But thanks be to God that their leader, Hassan Nasrallah, was assassinated by Israel. And many of those who were in the upper echelon of Hezbollah have also been put to death. And again, if you understand God's justice and what God says is righteous, you will be thankful for that. So I do not understand the continual calls for ceasefire. Let's be very clear about something. October 7th is when this war began. And as I said a few minutes ago, almost immediately, these three agencies, the United Nations, the European Union, and the White House, wanted ceasefire and to bring into Gaza humanitarian supplies. This was a mistake. All that is done is accomplish two things. It has strengthened Hamas. It has caused the civilians not to rise up against Hamas and assist Israel. And it has also prolonged the conflict. No, we should want an end to the war. And humanitarian aid does just the opposite. And what does it do? Well, it raises the prices of food there because it is prevalent in Gaza. These individuals that talk about a humanitarian crisis are liars. There is no humanitarian crisis because of a lack of food in Gaza. That's simply not the case. So let me say very clearly, there should be no ceasefire, not in Gaza until our hostages are returned and the leadership of Hamas is handed over for justice. And then next, I would like to say, why is it when Israel warned Hezbollah time and time again, stop the rockets into northern Israel, or we are going to enter into southern Lebanon? And what happens when Israel finally goes through and enters into southern Lebanon? Again, President Biden of the United States says that this ground offensive needs to stop, and I quote, it needs to stop now. I'm sorry, but when I hear the United Nations, the European Union, and the White House calling for Israel to stop, I can only conclude one thing. This is not to the benefit of Israel's position. It doesn't assist us in accomplishing our objectives in war. What does it do? It helps the enemy. And it's very, very disappointing to myself, and I think to many fair-minded Israelis, that constantly, when Israel's having success, we hear from the White House in particular that our success needs to stop. This is wrong. In fact, let me conclude with this. I would say to you that it's downright evil. We should want to exterminate evil. And if you don't think that Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran and the Houthis in Yemen and the militias that are loyal to Iran in Syria and Iraq and other places, if you don't think they're evil, well, we have a major disagreement between what I think and what you think. So again, may God be glorified. May He defend Israel, and may there be total victory against evil in this current battle that's taking place between Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and their proxies, and the nation of Israel. I'll close with that. Thank you for watching.